who is owning the company. So SDN effectively is all of these technologies wrapped into one nice, pretty package, right? If I came to you and said, hey, I'd like you to implement a BGP, VXLAN overlay, right, with ISIS extending to OSPF, with SGTs for security, and I want to do this on an MPLS network, and I also want to do this on an internet network. You'd look at me and go, okay, well that's how many sites? Okay, that's an 18-month project to think about. And then, right, the procurement side of that project, all these things come into play, and all of a sudden you're going, all right, we'll be done by 2025. And I think that was most of our lives, if you go back maybe 5 or 6 years. In fact, most of our lives was, this is so complex, we're just going to do this. We're going to do BGP and MPLS, perfect, done. We have yeah, you're laughing, but it's absolutely true, right? We're going to go very simple, right? We just want redundancy, high availability, we'll deal with security later, right? I mean, that was kind of always was it. We'll deal with security later. Well, I think we're later, right? So what SDN does is it wraps all of this complexity in a nice UI, in a nice big bubble, and says, okay, you want a switch, you want access, and you want a policy. Here, put this in production, press play. All right? So I know what you're thinking. Am I the only one here who hasn't invested in some sort of SDN solution? And the answer is yes. If you have not invested in an SDN solution, you are literally the only one. Anyone want to raise your hand? You're all liars. I know a lot of you, and almost none of you have SDN in the world today. But no, the adoption's been kind of slow, right? You're certainly not the only one. I would say that of our customer base has adopted SDN or any type of software-defined play. Were you explaining what SDN is?
No, the joke of the slide.
Oh, got it. Oh, man. That means I got to take it out for the next group because it got lost. They're not going to get it on Thursday either, right?
No.
Damn.
It's a cute slide.
Do we not know who this guy is? Come on, right? So anyway, the adoption's been kind of slow. So maybe 25, 30% of our customers have adopted some sort of software-defined architecture. And in most cases, that's been SD-WAN first. SD-LAN and SDDC, or software-defined data center, has yet to come around. And there's reasons for that, right? Not many people are ripping out Nexus 5000s anytime soon. Not many people are wanting to rip out a bunch of 2960s anytime soon. They put those guys in 5 years ago. They still got a long life cycle. They haven't been challenged by their organization to change their behavior yet. So you're not alone. We think in the future you might be. But software-defined networking is data center or cloud. It is SD-WAN. And it's SD-LAN, or the campus infrastructure. All right, so when we define what software-defined networking is, it can be any one of these topics. These happen to be vendors of choice, but we all know there's another 10 vendors behind this. In fact, right now, it's the most crowded space on the planet. SD-WAN specifically is incredibly crowded. I could name 10 vendors right now. All of them have point products. All of them have some good reviews, some bad reviews. You've got Silver Peak, you've got CloudGenix, you've got Riverbed that kind of failed in this whole thing. I don't know how they didn't turn this into a software-defined play that was successful. You've got Versa Networks, obviously everything from the Cisco stack, which is Viptela, Meraki. You've got VeloCloud, which is a VMware product. But it's an incredibly, I guess, diluted and crowded marketplace. For Cisco, for the first time in their lives, they're having to compete for edge routing. Up until this point, I think Cisco, by default, if you bought an MPLS service, you bought a Cisco router to go with it. It was almost a no-brainer. Sure, there was a handful of Juniper shops that were kind of ABCs because they just didn't like their Cisco rep, and I kind of get that, understand that, depending on where they were being. But for the most part, you could deploy a Cisco router, put it in production, and walk away from it, and 5 years later, it would still operate, right? Maybe 10 years later in some cases. We're still ripping out some pretty old stuff. We have customers with 2911s running around, right? And they're still out there pumping data. So it's been a very successful product line for Cisco. Well, all of a sudden now they're stuck in competition, right? Is this a pointer? Do I have a pointer on this guy? Which is a pointer? That guy? Nope, no pointer. Okay. So all of a sudden they're kind of struggling with, right, this new world, right? And I think everyone's got a different approach to it. We sell a lot of security software and a lot of security solutions, and our take is the smarter you can make these devices and these applications work together, it's in your best interests. So if you're going to take a firewall vendor, let's call it a Palo Alto, and then you're also going to evaluate an endpoint protection software, we like you to look at Traps, or now it's called Cortex EDR. The reason being is those guys actually work together. And in the SDN world, it's almost no different. Now, you can separate, you can choose different things. You can choose NSX versus ACI. You can choose Viptela or VeloCloud and pair it up with DNA Center for SD access. But you're going to have a different management plane for everything. And that's not the value of SDN. The value of SDN is one management plane across multiple technologies. I don't think any of this is stuff you don't already know. It's just stuff I want to reinforce with the group. Hey, Bob Abrams. Say hello to Bob, everybody. Yeah. So when you look at this, right, when you kind of look at the market play for all these guys is, right, Cisco's got one very specific market play, which is we own all of those, right, from beginning to end, right? We can deploy our ACI Anywhere product in cloud. We can deploy ACI to data centers. We can deploy Viptela or their legacy platforms, and also Meraki in the WAN segment. And then right now, they're the only one that has what I would call a packaged and designed campus-based platform. All right. So in our we did 2 events last year. One was specific to SD-WAN, and then one was specific to non-WAN, LAN, and SD data center. So the slowest product to really mature for our customers is definitely the campus fabric. I also believe that's the biggest impact you can get from security in the campus fabric. So that one I'll harp on a little bit in a few minutes. But this is our product landscape. Like I said, I can put 10 vendors here, probably 2 more vendors here. If you're an AWS or Azure native customer, you're using their SDN today. Really cool thing about AWS or Azure, any one of those software-defined switching platforms. If you want to see SDN in full effect and kind of grasp about how this actually works, spin up a VM, spin up 5 VMs, ping all those VMs, make all those VMs communicate, and then do show ARP, right? Show an ARP table on those VMs. You'll realize every single IP resolves to the same MAC address, 100% of the time, right? Because they have what we call like a magic ARP machine in the background. So every single packet that leaves that virtual machine gets ingested by the same data plane, and then within that data plane, that MAC address really isn't defined. It's like a fake MAC address. The identity is completely different. It's not just a very typical plug into a switch. You got a MAC, you got ports, all that stuff. So SDN removes all that now. I mean, we're very, very close to removing IP addresses from your brain, right? IP address management is losing steam in a big way because we don't care like we used to. And that's also part of SDN. So you're seeing bits and pieces of SDN in your life before you're a full adopter. Anyway, so again, from data center or cloud to SD-WAN or to the WAN layer to the campus, that's when we talk about SDN as a whole. It's all those technologies combined. And I've got a dead clicker. Talk to me. Maybe moving forward. Maybe I'm not close enough. Perfect. So the why. I always think it's important to review the why. I think it's the most important of any lunch and learn event. This is when I expect questions. So if you think about them, raise your hand and ask for questions. So I can spit these out in no time flat, right? We got security, performance, availability, identity, flexibility, automation, manageability, and visibility. All right? Super simple. None of this is complex. Every one of you guys, most people I see here are actual administrators of the equipment. They've worked on the equipment before, right? I think we've always we strive for all of these in every piece of equipment we buy. Can you name one piece of equipment that you own today that has that's not a software-defined device? I can't think of one. What? Ah, see? You bought it. You bought a managed service, and we give that. Thank you. That's a plug. We did not pay him for that. So but we will get to that. But no, reality is, look, all of these in one product is attainable, but incredibly hard to get to. It always has been. I'll take an example of a 2960 switch, right? The simplest access switch on the planet. You plug that guy in. By the way, that just prints money for Cisco. That's their favorite switch to sell. Well, now it's the 9100s, 9200s, because that is the most reliable device you've ever had, easy to reproduce, not very complex. Well, that 2960 switch has more features than you guys could possibly imagine. We just don't turn them on because it's kind of complex to manage. You don't exactly know what you're going to end up needing that for. First and foremost, the security features in that switch are just about the same as the security features available today, but you've never turned them on because it breaks things or you didn't have a security strategy around that. So SDN, the software component or the management component of that, is now layering on all this stuff that we would like to do, but we can't keep up with. I'll go back to, start with the 2960 switch. I think we all agree in isolation, if I have a 2960 switch and a static user, I have 5 users that we're never going to move, I could secure the hell out of that switch. I could shut down ports. I can create sticky MACs. I can create horizontal, MAC address policies. I can create vertical policies. I can make that person go nowhere, right? But as soon as mobility comes into play and an access point's on that switch instead, or someone moves from A to B, I now have to move and shift that policy. Everything I've done is now antiquated. So over the last 15 years, maybe 10 years of computing, the mobility or that kind of ability to carry yourself from place to place to place and operate as if you were connected to that one switch has been required. So what's gone by the wayside is those security policies. We just quit configuring them. Let's stop that. We're not going to care about VLAN assignment. If they show up here, it is what it is. We'll do our best. We'll put software on there to control that. So I'm here to tell you that time has come. You can now revert back to the security policy you want. It is very available. It is not hard. It's easy to implement. All right. So from a security perspective, this checks the security box. In a little while, I'm going to go over initiatives. Why do you want SDN in your environment? This is the highlight. I'm going to give you 2 reasons why this is a highlight. One is it keeps a CXO out of jail. And number 2 is, anyone want to guess? What keeps a CXO out of jail is unlimited budget. If you want budget for a project, you want to do something for a project, you have to explain the security implications of the project. All right? Was the City of Miami Beach Police Department? What was that ransomware? That was like, they wanted millions, right? Millions. So was it 5 million? So $5 million, right? And they're in a position where they're going to have to actually pay it, right? Riviera Beach got off cheap now at 600 grand, right? We have customers who were hit 3 and 4 years ago. Where's Harlander? Harlander, what was the drop like 3 years ago? It was like 7 grand, right? Oh, 14.
No, 7 grand.
7 grand. 7 grand, right? Was the drop for 3 or 4 years ago? It was like a no-brainer. If you could pay $7,000 now to get out of that position, you would do it all day long, right? But now they're trying to take advantage of insurance policies, which, by the way, I learned this myself as we were renewing our insurance policy, and you guys should also know this as the administrators of the stuff. So insurance providers are now capping the payout on your cybersecurity specifically to ransomware threats. So if you go out and say, I've got a $5 million liability policy for my cybersecurity, and the business has purchased that, there's likely a $100,000 cap on a payout for ransom. It's because the obvious, right? Everyone went out and got cybersecurity policies. They're not even hackers. These are like purely business people, right? For $1, they go out and buy one little exploit and send it out to one customer who picks it up. That particular person is completely aware that all of you have cyber insurance policies, and they're very well aware that if they get you, you're just going to have the policy pay. So how does that policy, how does CNA, that insurance company, protect themselves? By limiting their exposure. And that's very common. So while we have, ransomware, I got some crazy ransomware statistics. One of them is there's a ransomware attack every 14 seconds. Right? That's part of the State of the Union speech we're giving these days. Every 14 seconds, someone's getting hit by a ransomware attack. That's nuts, right? I mean, I think a human's born like every 6 or 7 seconds, so it's 2 minutes.
No, I was just going to add to the point about it being business people.
Mm-hmm.
I remember last November, one of our customers down south got hit, and they got in touch with the company ransomware. And he's like, I just got to ask, how did this happen? And he says, oh, you were in the Monday morning meeting, and you were number 2 on the list, and so that's why you got chosen. And it was like they did research. They were like, oh, in this category, they're number 2. They probably have the most likelihood to pay. Let's go hit them. So it was like, just
Easiest payday ever, right?
we're going to these guys are number 2.
Yeah. And they bought whatever tool they were using online. So security, absolutely 100% number one motivator for any software-defined solution, right? Performance is the second. So software-defined networking can do things for you that you would not have done yourself, okay? i.e. ECMP, right? True ECMP, right? Better multipathing, better BFD for high availability and failover, right? Setting up all those trunks to better manage like frame oversizing and things like that. All the stuff that you would spend hours and hours researching to go ahead and configure that link properly, software-defined does that automatically with a bandwidth command, right? You say, hey, here's what we're going. We're doing this is 100 meg up, and it's a gig down, and then boom, every single router knows how the egress and ingress works and operates automatically in SD-WAN. Same in the LAN, right? With buffer over subscription and things like that. So from a performance perspective, the software is not smarter than you are. It just already has all that stuff pre-programmed. It's now giving you the ability to say, I want those features that I couldn't get before. Same with availability. The availability built out around SDN is unlike any other. all of those redundant paths, all those optimizations, all that stuff is automatic. Identity, I'm going to put in the table for now. Flexibility, it allows you to literally go anywhere you want, whenever you want. Expansion's no-brainer. You want to add a switch in 30 seconds on a plug-and-play, no problem. You want that policy to go from A to B, no problem. That's part of the automation and manageability features. So we have begged for manageable tools from Cisco forever, and they have them, and they're really nice. DNA is an excellent tool. The Meraki Cloud is ridiculously easy to work within. So if you're a Meraki customer today and you're consuming access points, to add the SD-WAN is a cinch. To add the SD-LAN is a cinch. And then visibility. At the end of the day, all these tools give the visibility that your CEO thinks you already have. And we know you don't have it. Right? That's the dirty little secret that IT has. The CEO thinks you know everything goes on in your network. The reality is you know 25%, 30%. You would never know if somebody went home and downloaded some application that looked clean and installed, and they showed up, and now they're operating this application. I can think of maybe 2 shops in my entire life that really have it locked down that well. And I think if you ask the end user experience, they probably say their end user experience is difficult to work within that organization. But I mean, you have fractional visibility today, but you probably don't have that east-west leverage visibility you want. All these reasons are rock solid to kind of get into SDN, and I want you to keep those in your mind as you're deciding a way to get in, because you're going to be there, almost whether you like it or not. So, you're formatting on the Mac. L.
That makes sense, though. It's a great story.
Yeah, I guess so. So MPLS is dead, and I'm here to tell you why. Now, I'm not saying don't use MPLS. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying SD-WAN can make it less relevant for you. There are still cases for it, but it's not that important. All right? So what I'm going to show you today is, this is AT&T. This is off their year-end, December 31, 2019. This is their financial statement. All right? I'm showing you their earnings. Their business wireline service, $15 billion by their total, 181.2. Their business, or they call it strategic and managed services, $15 billion. That represents 8% of their revenue. This is strategic and managed. It's voice. It's managed services. It's cloud, right? It's Ethernet, broadband services. Oh, it's also their AVPN platform. So if you extrapolate 8% down to all these products, that probably makes up about 1% of their business. MPLS is not a focus of their business. I was the guy last year that said SD-WAN is going to crush carriers. Guess what? They don't care. Right? I thought they cared. They don't care. It's 1% of their business. Now, there's one person in AT&T that gets paid on MPLS. He will care. But the investors don't care. Right? They would rather them develop other solutions like, we've developed services that rely on SDN and network virtualization. Right? That's where they're going. So that's why I say MPLS is dead. It's still going to be a transport that people are going to use for a very long time, but it's not required. MPLS did really 2 things for you, a guaranteed bandwidth and a guaranteed priority, quality of service. Well, that's SD-WAN's entire job, is to guarantee bandwidth and guarantee priority. And natively, MPLS doesn't do half the things that SD-WAN does. So the when. This is the most important part. How am I doing time? OK. As soon as stakes come out, I'm off. So the when is the most important part. When should I adopt software-defined networking? Well, that can matter in a lot of different ways. I already told you security initiative. This is the #1 reason to adopt any type of software-defined data center or software-defined LAN architecture. From a software-defined WAN architecture, it's probably in your renewals or your expansion. Right? But these are your opportunities as technologists to get these products in your environment. I don't think anyone doesn't want this. Right? Everything SDN or SDX, those are all driven by the manufacturer. They're great, but as a customer, they're great. But these decisions are being driven by the manufacturer more so than the customer. It's like the tail wagging the dog. It's a little bit like cloud, right? And recurring, right? Recurring transactions. Is it better for the customer that everything's going recurring? Maybe, maybe not. Right? Is it better for the manufacturer? Absolutely. And it's a little bit the same with SDN, right? You may want to keep it old school, but they want you to be here, and there's good reason for it. Even if you don't want all those features, right? You don't want to turn them on as day one. You can still turn on just the very basics to get you where you're going to be. So as you guys are looking to buy, try not to go buy the old stuff just because you want to buy the old stuff. Let's try to get yourself involved in the newer technologies that are available to you, and those newer technologies are going to have this baked in. So anything security, software-defined X takes the number one spot. The ability just to block traffic east-west horizontally on the fly at a full 10 gig, 40 gig, 100 gig, 400 gig is paramount. All right? Any expansion plans, opening up a new office, just running a new application, opening cloud. That's an opportunity to invest in some software-defined solutions. Renewals, look, Bob's still here, but everyone hates the SmartNet renewal bill. It comes every year. They're like, oh, SmartNet. Again, that is your opportunity to go ahead and trade that SmartNet renewal in for an upgraded component or a piece of hardware or a technology that can then make your life different. All right, so that's actually an advantage. There's an advantage moving from SmartNet to some of their renewables. Anything end of sale, end of life. You guys might hate that. As vendors, we love it. Right? So a lot of people are still running EOS, EOL stuff. The biggest part about EOS and EOL stuff is not necessarily that it's going to break on you and you can't get it replaced. It's that there's no longer security patches or no longer vulnerabilities being created for those, right? And we had a big CDP issue with Cisco in the last 3 or 4 weeks where we're going out and either shutting down CDP or upgrading CDP because there's a vulnerability there. And those old switches, oh, I can hear the stakes. That's my timeline. Those old switches that were there, 2960s, right? In a lot of cases, if they're very old, they're not going to get those updates, right? And you as an administrator, we used to not think about that stuff previously. We used to not really worry about upgrading switches. But now knowing that a customer can walk into our environment, plug in, get LAN access, gain control of that switch, and then effectively put themselves wherever they want, that's enough to scare anybody. So these are all opportunities for you guys to dive in. So how? So once we figure out, okay, we have an opportunity here to do something, how am I going to go ahead and take this on? So we have a saying here at R2, cloud first, but not cloud only. All right, so we do like the cloud, but we're not limited to cloud. So you have to decide how your organization wants to run. How does the cloud fit into SD? Really, it fits into the SDDC world, right, and the SD-WAN world. How do I manage this, right? Meraki's all cloud managed on-prem hardware, right? Viptel is cloud managed on-prem hardware. But solutions like NSX or solutions like ACI, those are primarily on-premise solutions. So you really have to decide where the organization is going. You don't have to force anybody to anywhere. Actually, the federal government had a cloud-first mentality in 2011. That mentality just shifted to cloud smart. So the latest federal guidelines around cloud is it's not necessarily cloud first, it's now cloud smart. We also believe that to be the case, right? It's not every workload's made for it. And especially when we're talking about the SDN world, at the end of the day, people are going to connect to wireless. They're going to connect to access points or switch ports. They're going to connect to backbone switches in some capacity. And that stuff doesn't live there yet. It might be managed there, but that's just a convenient place to deploy an application to manage it. But keep that in mind. The second thing is the most important message. Don't be afraid of brownfield. You do not have to wait for a full overhaul or a full data center takedown to adopt an SDN component, right? I'll use Eduardo as an example. He has one PCI-based application that lives in VMware. And it only runs on, I don't know, we can probably limit it to 4 of his 31 hosts. So what are we looking at doing? Just running NSX on 4 hosts. Sure, there's some complexity there. There's a little bit of overhead. But that purchase of just 4 hosts is going to allow us to enter the SDN world for him, apply the protections required, and remove an entire component of PCI. So you don't have to take it all down. You don't literally have to make this massive investment to take advantage of some SDN architecture. I think in everyone's environment today, you can find one spot where I can take advantage of this feature and I don't have to go all in. And you've got tons of options. Self-managed, co-managed, or managed services, right? Go back to that AT&T slide, right? AT&T's trying desperately to sell you their managed SD-WAN because they're trying to make up for any loss of revenue on their MPLS side. And you can determine as a customer, is that right for you? I don't know how much I love that solution. But you have plenty of options. I mean, Meraki is very much a self-managed device. At 10 sites, no problem. At 30 sites, all right, getting close to needing a little help. At 60 to 100 sites, you should probably ask for a little bit of help. Right? It's designed to be easy. I call it the Apple. Right? It's the Apple of technology. What you want is there, right? And if you want to really tweak with it, we'll get an Android. So you get tons of options here. And don't take anything for granted. That is my number one takeaway on SD anything. Don't take anything for granted. Don't take that any vendor you buy can deliver the same high availability, the same performance, and the same experience. because that is absolutely not true. We are in a time in IT where expectations are the root of all disappointment. I mean, maybe that's life too, because my wife has got high expectations and she gets me every day and she's disappointed. But expectations, right, create, I mean, your expectation from the CFO to the CEO and vice versa has some level of disappointment attached to it. If you have certain expectations, don't take them for granted. Make sure you drill in 100% all the way to every product line. Ask us every question you want. Don't assume anything, because every product has its caveats, especially in the infancy of the product. So the products are, I mean, the maturity level on these products are 3 to 5 years old. Meraki's a little bit different. It had a much more mature product that they kind of backed into software defined. But the other maturity products are on SDN and ACI. Yeah, they've been out there for maybe 5 or 6 years, but they're really starting to get into customers now over the last 2 to 3 years. So ask every single question when it comes around to adoption. So I am done for the moment, unless anyone has any questions on the SDN architecture and overview. Any questions? Product related, entering the market related, let me eat my steak related. All right, cool. I'm going to hand this over to Jason and Dan. Jay, you want to do the intro, or Dan? You want to handle the intro? I'll read from Jason's intro. So Dan brings over 20 years. Dude, you're old.
I know.
Dan brings over 20 years of experience to the IT, to the technology space. We've worked with Dan for a long time. I'll give my abbreviated version. So Dan has participated in 2 different organizations with R2. At one point, he was the LASIK Vision, and then he took himself to another company called Sage Dental. If you guys are currently looking for a dentist, please support our customer.
Yes.
All right? They'll buy more Meraki. Anyway, so Dan went through a rapid transition into the software-defined world, but it's a lot bigger than that. So we're here to tell him the story. This is your opportunity to ask questions about how quickly adoption really happened, how hard it was, did we actually help him, or did we do nothing and sit in the sidelines? I think all that's fair points. So I'm going to hand this over to Jason and let him rock and roll. Oh.
All right.
And then I'm going to hand Dan my mic.
I know I'm way more important than your steak right now, so,
You might be better after this whole.
keep going. How you guys doing? Whoa. Oh, like post-Super Bowl PTSD, huh, or something like that? I don't know. Cool. All right, so let's have a little fun here while my boy's suiting up. Dan, thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm a professional interviewer. Actually, I feel pressure because Lenny does this very well, and now we've got Lenny in the audience, and here I am all nervous. I'm all nervous. Exactly. Keep eating your steak. You're doing fine. Just do what you normally do. All right. So listen, Dan, thank you very much for doing this. Right,
yeah.
Guys, we wanted to take the opportunity to give you guys some real life stories, right, and the opportunity to ask questions. Any experience with R2 and transition. Ask him all the hard ones. I've already prepped him, and we've got 3 more steaks for him after this to make sure he gives us good answers. But seriously, this is the interactive part of this for sure. So feel free to raise your hand. We will have a Q&A at the end, but feel free to jump in and ask any questions that you'd like. Cool?
Sounds like a
You
plan.
ready?
Heck yeah.
Dan's very nervous too, by the way. This is his first time doing this.
Right.
Right. First time. All right. So listen, let's talk about when you first came aboard at Sage, right? So what were some of the objectives, directives? What were some of the plans that you were looking to put in place?
So when I came on Sage, like a lot of you, a lot of challenges as far as I walked into a situation where, I'd left a situation where I was 19 years. We kind of knew the infrastructure from beginning to end. Walking into Sage, we had a lot of challenges. We had about 30 to 40 hours of downtime per month across 60 locations. So it was aging infrastructure. It was 4 meg pipes to each one of my locations through AT&T. It was bandwidth challenges and application challenges, and everywhere you looked, another problem would come up. So as far as with that, we had slow network performance. We had this one application that was super important for running the organization. We did like a daily huddle every morning. Every practice would go in to our BI system and try to kind of figure out what are we going to do for the day? How are we going to capture new patients, no-shows, all the things that they really need to do to operate the business. This application we paid a lot of money for and have a contract on just wouldn't run. Just simply wouldn't run at our practices. So that was probably my main objective when I first got there was make it work. Make it work. And then I started saying, oh, I have a 4 meg pipe. And I have to run voice over IP, I have to print. I'm running RDP at all these locations with about 10 to 20 PCs or terminals. It was kind of a nightmare.
Kind of a nightmare. Perfect. And you teed me up for my next question. We didn't rehearse this, by the way. All right, so let's talk. So SD-WAN, right? So what problems would it solve for you, right? Obviously, we got an application that's really important to the business, not usable. What were you hoping that SD-WAN would deliver to the organization?
So I had to move quick. That was one of the things. Is I had this MPLS network. I'm in contract. I'm there. There's nothing I can do at that point. But I needed to layer in some additional bandwidth. I needed bandwidth quickly. Not even looking at all the other byproducts that SD-WAN got me, but I look at the Meraki product, and we had a little bit of experience at LASIK where we did a small little POC, and it really kind of...
Highly successful POC, by the way.
A highly successful POC.
Throw that out there. Highly. I'm just here for the comic interlude. By the way, you listen. I'm simply the frame, right? You're the picture, so that's all. I'm just trying to do my best there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, so no, but so the whole initial objective was get bandwidth out there. We'll get the application running if we get some bandwidth, and we needed kind of a very easy, flexible solution to make that happen. So we could keep our MPLS network, layer in some broadband, and kind of get the best of both worlds, just to layer in more. What that actually got us was a whole bunch, like secure, like when Jamie says those, what was it, 8 boxes of flexibility, security, all those items, it blew my mind how easy it was to implement all of them in one Meraki portal. And it wasn't that it's complicated going into a Cisco device. It just was all there. I was able to actually resolve that bandwidth issue, those application issues, just with the Meraki SD-WAN product.
Yeah, very cool. All right, good deal. So why we chose Meraki, right? Make fun of the fact that we did it before. Had like a nice little POC, so that kind of worked out, right? Same problem, same solution, same motion. We've done it once, which worked great. I know one of your charters when you took over at Sage was you were doing full managed services, full outsourced IT, kind of build your own team, right? And so as we kind of did the selection around the SD-WAN platform, we went to Meraki. How did that kind of fit into that whole strategy?
So that was kind of scary. So again, coming in, I had 2 really, really good employees, but I had a 60 location enterprise, a data center, and a support center with a full call center. And I had 2 guys, and everything else was outsourced. So a practice has an issue, they call our outsourced vendor, they leave a message. Well, all they would do is just taking messages and calling us back. So at that point,
Not R2.
not R2.
Not R2. For the record.
So we took the 2 individuals that we had, kind of elevated them, and they kind of worked with the R2 team a little bit on getting the Meraki implementation done while we were trying to staff up the organization. Stepping up the organization was a challenge in itself because we had to build a service desk, we had to build an engineering department, we had to do all these things while everything's failing across the network. We had throughput issues at the support center, we had throughput issues in the data center, ailing hardware, and now I have a network that just, I can't even haul anything over it. So, very scary situation, but making this decision was very easy because this was going on while we're trying to fix everything else, and I was so surprised at how smooth it went. That was the crazy part. Was
perfect.
R2.
Team you right up for implementation. All right, so let's skip the fact that you had an amazing sales experience. Procurement was extremely easy.
Right.
By the way, you loved your pricing. I mean, I know that's what you wanted to focus on here, right? But let's let's give our engineers a little love, right? Maybe, right? Maybe we'll even slide into project management a little bit. So I know you want to go gush about me and the rest of the team and Bob back there, but let's keep it to the engineers and the actual delivery, okay, Dan? So talk to me about that, buddy. Go ahead. What do you got for me? Conway, you know it's true. I know you're back there. You're like, he's right.
No, implementation, that's also that's a scary part because we have 60 locations. We have no window of time to take them down. I have an immediate issue I need to correct, and I need to first put broadband in them and very quickly get somebody out to these practices, rip out the old infrastructure, put in the Meraki equipment, get everybody turned up, make sure everything's working, and across 60 locations, it wasn't going to be easy. I know it was going to be a major challenge because I didn't have any support people other than, Ryan and Sabi at the time, and so very, very little bandwidth for us to get this stuff done. R2 was great because we had a project manager, we had the team, we had
Sales team.
a lot of really, really good people that knew SD-WAN, that knew our challenges, and I can't say that I had an easier implementation than that one.
All right, so don't go yet. This is you can't look at the pop quiz that I'm going to pop on you, by the way. Not rehearsed here. So let's talk about timelines for a second. Right, timelines and maybe some unexpected challenges at the sites. Right, so maybe we can talk through that. And you know what? I'll tee you up. All right, here's a pop quiz. All right, true or false? R2 was able to roll out 60 sites before Dell could produce enough computers to fill them.
Correct.
True. True
True.
story, by the way. True story. All right, 60 sites in
What was it? 3 months?
3 months. 60 sites in 3 months.
And it was, I mean, the great part about it was we were also gutting each location, pulling out every thin client and putting in the small Dell computers. I didn't think that was going to be the challenge. Dell should be able to give us computers. Small form factor.
Yep, we
that
outperformed
shouldn't
them.
even be an issue. We found that we couldn't. We were trying to find them anywhere we could to get PCs enough to keep up with the project. R2 had an individual each one of these locations, installing the broadband, installing the infrastructure, ripping out the old, testing all the voice over IP, and this is during the day while we're operating. So we were able to take down at lunch for 1 hour, and they were able to go in, implement, rip out, and everybody was still working. Every day it's revenue. Every day that we were down was revenue. So we were looking at 30 to 40 hours a month, and that equated to about 120,000. No, I'm sorry. No, that was a Comcast outage. I'll tell you about that in a second. But our downtime, we'd have to send a provider home. We'd have to call over our patients, say, "Don't even come in because we can't get you on our Dentrix system." So the office was pretty much dead. So we were dealing with 30 to 40 hours of that per month. So that was 1 or 2 locations that everybody's scurrying to try and reschedule patients, losing revenue, not a good patient experience. And we didn't really have any extra services. One thing I think that was great about this as well was we used the switching, the MX devices, and we also did the Wi-Fi. So not only did we, at the beginning of this project, we didn't have enough bandwidth to even run our applications and run our core applications. At the end of it, we didn't have to take the practices down. We were able to get them all up. And then we went from 30 to 40 hours of downtime to 0 downtime. So we have zero
Love.
downtime.
A round of applause
for
there,
months.
right? 30 to 40 hours to 0. Let's do that. All right, I'll just do it myself. It's fine.
One thing of impact, I don't know, back
Way
in
to be
August.
interactive, everybody. Nice work. Simple rule, right? One rule to follow. Be interactive.
The great thing was, like back in August, there was, I don't know if you guys all encountered where Comcast had an outage, where like most of Florida was taken down with Comcast. A lot of our broadband was through Comcast, and I think we had about, I'm trying to think, 17 locations out of our 60 were completely taken down. So if we had a single internet connection from Comcast, we would have had 17 locations that we would have had to close. Just close the doors and wait for Comcast to report back that they could get our network back up. That would have equated to about $120,000 that we would have lost that day. But we didn't. We saw it all. We saw little red blips all in our Meraki portal, but didn't miss a beat, didn't lose anything. Voice over IP was up. All of our practices were operating.
Very cool. So one of the things I talk about customers all the time is kind of our flexibility, right? That we offer at R2, right? So we build projects, we build them to business results, right? We, lack of a better term, we've got these awesome mugs in our office that says "Get shit done," right? So we're kind of get shit done people. Listen, I'm not going to sit there and tell you guys that we're low voltage cablers, but there were times when our engineers would be on site, we'd have cabling problems.
Extremely flexible.
Right, we would jump in there. So we took on swapping out PCs for you.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily our game when it comes to strengths of R2, right? I'm not going to tell you where the guys that come in and swap out your PCs, but agreed that when our guys would come on site, and I think one of the things that I don't want to put words in your mouth, right? But if we had to get something done to get the site up and running the way that the business expectation was, it would be fair to say that the R2 engineer on site would handle it and get it done.
Yeah. No, it was great because we had you guys had the flexibility to do extra things for us, not just I'm going to rack these couple devices, I'm going to plug the internet in and walk away.
Yeah.
That completely wasn't the experience which I have had with other vendors.
Right.
You guys are, I would say, and that's why I keep coming back, it's one of those interesting things where we've kind of developed this partnership, because I don't think that we would have been able to implement 60 locations in the time frame we needed to with all the other things that we had going on without being able to lean on you guys and say, where can you guys help? And you guys came to the table with solutions, and they weren't just technology solutions. They were, getting physical people in there to kind of take on swapping out our PCs.
Yeah.
I would have had to get somebody else, another vendor, another project, figure that whole thing out.
Change order.
Change order. But no, we had a specific budget, and we discussed it, and you guys executed.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so I know you wanted to gush about us, right? That's fine, but you do gush about Reka and Nina all the time.
Yes.
Right, and now, let's talk about project management. I do think, when we built a project management team, it's something that really transformed R2 as a company from maturity. But just so you know, here's kind of this is a starburst, right? This is a progress chart of tracking all of our projects, right? If you're doing a project with us, you'll see this a lot. But maybe talk about the impact of project management and our ability to execute, 60 sites in 90 days.
Yeah, so obviously the first thing is I have to report back to the CEO all of our progress. It was a big project. We spent a lot of money for it, and we had to show results. Right now, the business is suffering. So being able to show very, very quickly that we're organized, that we actually have a plan, and that we're able to execute on that plan. So building that confidence first. Again, this is my first 2 months at Sage, and I'm trying to take on a very complex situation with no resources. So being able to show this starburst, I think, was one of the most impactful things, because we broke it into 3 phases, and we could show which locations we were going to hit first, which areas we targeted, and I could quickly go to a meeting and say, okay, when phase 1 was done, this was all green, and it really kind of made an impact, and it was huge. And some of these things were partially implemented. We had some issues with getting broadband at some of these locations. So, there wasn't just R2 challenges, which there weren't any there, but it was because of AT&T was creating issues, or we couldn't get PCs because all of a sudden they stopped making the Intel processors, and they stopped manufacturing the PCs we were using for a short amount of time. And this was really impressive. And we had the weekly meetings. And again, Reka is amazing project manager. She actually stays on my team. We have other projects going on. We have other things but she has a way of getting in there and actually in a very respectful, nice way, but keeping everybody on track and tracking everything.
Yeah, I do say a lot inside of R2, and these guys can all vouch for it. At R2, there's Reka, and then there's everybody else, and that includes me and Jamie on top of that, by the way. Reka is untouchable in the R2 world, especially to Jason, right? Reka can do everything wrong. She didn't do anything wrong at all. But she's amazing.
But the amount of information I had at my fingertips. So, again, so many moving pieces, but each one of these site installs could have been impactful. It could have been a major issue if one of these locations, and I got dentists, I've got surgeons that are in there wanting to make money. If they're not working, they're not making money. And being able to get the end of day updates, I'd get this full report every single day that they went to 5 locations, and all of a sudden I've got an end of day report. The IP phones were working, that all these things had gotten done, and that way I knew at the end of the day I could go to the next day and say, we got all this stuff done. And it really was, it was huge.
All right, so we talked about kind of the benefits, right, the end result. So from frequent downtime, right, to no downtime, application performance improvement, obviously saved you from Comcast failover, right, patient experience better, no canceled appointments. Any like unintended side benefits, things that maybe you weren't expecting or thinking you were going to get, that you look back and you're like, you know what, that's pretty darn useful for me.
Well, I think one of the things that's really kind of impactful, and I kind of laugh at my CEO about it now, but we started with we couldn't even run our base applications. Our core applications were just sluggish and just wouldn't run. At the end of this project, I'm offering guest Wi-Fi to my patients. So I'm going from having no bandwidth to having all this bandwidth that I can throw all that down. If my core application needs to use more bandwidth, it's already prioritizing that. And maybe my guest Wi-Fi experience, maybe they don't have such a great YouTube experience when I'm doing a lot of printing or updating 3D renders of ortho cases, and we're pushing that up to the data center. But it's doing all of that behind the scenes, and we're not having to manage that and sit there watching all those devices. We set those policies, and it works. So going from having nothing to having guest Wi-Fi was huge in itself. The visibility, we can now troubleshoot if there was a device that would fall off the network. Ryan's guys are over there trying to troubleshoot what happened. He can see when that device fell off the network in the Meraki portal. He can see when it came off the network, where it was plugged in. You can see all the different metrics on just a client PC. An interesting thing that just happened with us last week, I think it was, we had a break-in at one of our locations in Jensen Beach. Okay, so I get the email first thing in the morning. Senior leadership's on this exchange, and we're trying to figure out what's going on, what's the impact. On a Sunday night at 7:58, we had a break-in. They went through and they removed every single PC off of our network. So we have all of our operatories. They unhooked every computer. In our Meraki portal, we could actually see where each PC came off the network. So it was kind of interesting because I was like, all right, there's a break-in. Do you want me to head up to Jensen Beach and take a look at it? And they're like, no, let's get in the office. Let's try and figure out what's going on. So we already had the police there. We're trying to do a police report. They only took one computer, though. So they unhooked everything, and they only took one computer. So what happened? What happened there on Sunday night that made them not, they unhooked everything, but they only took one computer. So we go through and we look, and through the Meraki portal, there's a Bluetooth beacon for it watches for walk-by traffic. So you're always looking at traffic and who's there. Loyal people that come back, and all this stuff that we're not even using.
Marketing information.
Yes.
Right.
Great stuff that we're going to start using in our data warehouse soon. But we were able to see when the thief came in. They came into the practice because we see their Bluetooth beacon on their cell phone come in. We were able to see all the PCs come off the network. We were able to see the one that actually never came back on the network. So we were able to identify which PC was stolen without having to do a physical inventory. And then we were also able to see that the cleaning people showed up at 8-something p.m. on Sunday and scared the person off, and they took the one PC that they had in their hands and left.
It's funny.
So they only made off with one computer because our cleaning people showed up. And we know that because we see their Bluetooth beacons on their phones as well as. So it's just weird that you can use all this data that's in this portal and use it very easily. I didn't have to go to an engineer or go to my guys. I was able to look in the Meraki portal myself and think, let me see if I can see if there was any cell phones or anybody on the Wi-Fi while I was there or when this happened. And it was huge.
Wait till we start pitching you on a Meraki camera on top of that right away.
Well,
throw that right into the dashboard.
I didn't even start talking about that, but I did bring up to our person that handles all these events in our legal department, and I was like, let me try and put a Meraki camera in because we tried it at LASIK. We tried it, and there wasn't really good use.
Dan. We're on the same page. I like it.
I don't have the budget this year. But
budget.
But this was a perfect case where we were looking at another project was to put ADT or put alarms in some of these locations because there is a lot of equipment there that, some of it's too big for them to carry off. So but it makes for a really, really good use case where that Meraki camera would have been even more helpful.
Cool. All right. Well, I've got to do the obligatory ending here, right? A, thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you.
B, all right. So I have to ask, tell me about the experience of R2. Like, tell me, why do you partner with R2? Tell these guys why do you choose R2 to partner? Like, we always talk about the R2 difference, right? So if I were to say, hey Dan, what does that mean to you? What's the answer to that question?
So I think I've told this story in the past where it's no secret. I have trust issues. I really do. I don't trust anyone. I was a cop for 20 years too. So I don't take anything, I take everything with a grain of salt. I started one of these lunch and learns quite a few years back, and we started with a small project, and you guys executed flawlessly. I thought, okay, that's great. That's a small project. But we've since ripped out infrastructure in 2 data centers. We've done many networking projects with multi-sites, and every single time, it's been a partnership. You guys have been an extension of my team, knowing our infrastructure. There's a big thing to be said for being able to close that gap of trying to explain the issue and trying to explain your infrastructure at the same time while everything's down. Knowing that you guys know my infrastructure, knowing that you know our personalities, you know our team, I don't have a problem. I don't have to call a help. Well, I don't want to mess up your processes, but I don't feel like I have to call a help desk, put in a ticket. just call Jamie and he'll fix it. No. And I've tried to.
Everybody else allowed to do that too.
I mean, I don't call Jason because he can't fix anything.
Nothing. But if you need some,
If it's 9 a.m., we're calling Jason. We need some coffee.
that's exactly right. I'm great
true.
at coffee. I'm great at breakfast. I'm good at lunch too. But if at 2 a.m., if you need somebody to track someone down, I'm your guy.
Yeah.
Like I'm just letting you know. I'll wait for a keyboard, but I'll make a right call for you.
But yeah, I mean, it's just that partnership and knowing that it's not just this solution or that solution. I mean, there's been situations where we've had, major issues. We went with the Cisco firewalls, and you guys were able to come in, negotiate with Cisco. Sorry, Bob. And we had to go to Palo. We went to Palo because we had 3 failures, and we just couldn't. There was no way we could do that. And you guys did all of it behind the scenes to help me, so I could keep focused on staffing a service desk, getting everything back up and running, putting our processes in place and some of our data governance, and building a BI team. So on your daily basis, you have so many other things going on. Knowing that you can pass something over to you guys is huge, and I can go to sleep at night.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. Well, thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. No, you can't go anywhere. You don't have to go anywhere. Why don't you come on up? Let's do a little Q&A. So I guess at the end of the day, if you have questions, right? So for Jamie, right, as a presenter, for Dan, if you have any great sales experience questions you guys want to ask, I'm just it's phenomenal, right? So we can just answer all those right now. But anybody have any questions? Anything you heard today? Anything you want to dig in on a little bit? The interactive part get you? It's weird. Too many syllables.
So I didn't touch on products very heavy. Any product-centric questions? On any SD-WAN product or SDN product?
Anybody order chicken?
All right, we got one.
All right.
Go.
I am curious about the identity box that we said we were going to come back.
Oh, forgot that.
Shoot. You said
Yeah.
shoot.
So identity services. So specifically the SD campus or SD-LAN. Most people are going through some sort of 802.1x challenge or some sort of NAC-based identity management in their environment, and they've either given up or they've thought this is incredibly painful to deploy. I should have actually put that on the reasons to deploy. It's really
Network identity, not IAM, any of that.
It's not IAM for AWS or GCP, but it is integration with those same So IAM from GCP, right, takes your Active Directory from Windows and dumps it up there, right? But the initial point of access into your environment should be the first time someone tries to connect to a resource. And that same identity should carry all the way through to every resource they want. So my take on it is, if you've been holding back on actually implementing a true, let's just simplify it and call it a NAC-based process, right? And not anything greater than that. But all of these SDN functions are built around identity. So step 1 is, okay, virtualize the network. Step two is know who enters the network, right? And Meraki does it virtually seamlessly. But the DNA side, right, the SD access side from Cisco can do it. Can do it even with more depth, right, and give you a better vision into it. So I often think that the biggest thing we're not doing in IT is identifying our users appropriately and granting them access to the network. Now, some of you guys are data center shops with a small user base. Some of you are small data centers, large user base. But in both cases, your ransomware is coming from your users. Just going to throw that out there. It is not coming from your data center applications. So you have to be really particular about it. I mean, you guys are, some people here are software development shops. The latest signature on targeting software development shops is great. People are actually getting into software now. They're deploying lines of code in your own software as you compile it and put a signatory on it and then put it out there to actually operate. So there's really weird stuff happening on the software development side. But identity management is key, and it's not baked into these solutions, right? It's not included in these solutions. It's encouraging these solutions. So enabling 802.1x is like a click of a button. With a little bit of, there's a little bit of thought behind it, but previously, the biggest part about enabling identity solutions or 802.1x in these environments is building out all the VLAN structure, building the get-well networks, right? Building the ability to actually take advantage of that kind of stuff. Now that all that's there for you on a silver platter, enabling 802.1x is like just a little bit. I mean, it's a couple days. Hey, I got to enable it on my workstation. I got to push a policy through GPO, or I got to choose to use two-factor authentication. But all that stuff, all those decisions there, right? It's like the end of the mountain, right? You don't have to crawl a really big way to get to it. You're already there. So yeah, the identity part of all SDN, and the identity carries through end to end. So once you identify somebody on a switchboard or a wireless connectivity, that identity carries all the way through to GCP, right? I say Google Cloud just because it's the new cool kid in town. It could be anybody for that matter. But that carries you all the way through. That packet is tagged with your identity all the way through from end to end. So you're handled properly on the WAN, you're handled properly in the LAN, you're handled properly on the software-defined data center. That is the benefit that Cisco has today, which is if you onboard them on a LAN, right? You onboard an end user in wireless, and they transmit that packet, you now carry that SGT tag all the way through to its final destination. SGTs are scalable group tags. We kind of cover that in depth with some of these things, but ultimately, what it means is it's a different way of identifying you. You're not being identified by an IP address anymore. You're being identified by a group membership, and that group membership is actually on your packet. Right? It's not the IP has headers and payload. In those headers, they've expanded those headers to actually include a security flag on those packets. So it's really a unique way to handle data. So identity is key in all these solutions. They allow you to identify that particular person or that function device transmitting that data. Any other questions? Sounds good. Any other comments? Anyone want to handle it?
Honesty is the best policy, Sean.
Anyone want to heckle me?
I do have a no heckling rule, but we can do it after. It's fine.
Really? So I talked a lot about how to get SDN into your environment. Anybody have like a current scenario they'd like to share with the class that says, we've been thinking about doing this. We don't really see the value to it. And I can give you an example to get started. I think if you buy one Cisco switch, you buy one Cisco 9300 series switch. You buy one Cisco 9300 series switch, I can make an argument for you to put DNA and run SDA in that switch. Because that is like a seed. It's the first thing in the world for you. So rather than just saying, I'm going to do it the way I used to do before, I'm just going to buy a 2960, or I'm going to buy this switch, I'm going to plug it to the end of a fiber chain, and I'm just going to put it right there, and the serve end users and configure it the same way. I can make a compelling argument for you not to do that. Right? You have to start somewhere, and starting in brownfield is just a fine place to be. Right? Setting up just one switch with that one policy, right? Because then after that, the next switch and you start converting over legacy stuff that plays well, and now you've built yourself a whole campus worth of software-defined components. So I highly encourage you, even if you just need one switch, just a couple access points, just something to get started somewhere. So.
Yeah.
My name is Patricio. Do you have nowadays visibility to metrics such as performance, operations, and stuff, financials, revenues, costs, because of an SDN1 implementation?
Yeah, walking in, I wish I would have had more metrics before. Like walking in, I was just tracking downtime for 3 or 4 months, knowing that this is a mess. And you can only do so many root cause analysis to see, wow, we have a common problem at each one of these nodes. So we didn't have a lot of metrics to begin with, but now we were able to put a dollar amount to our downtime. And that downtime that we were tracking for, at least when we were tracking it, is very easy to do. And I have that. But yeah, I mean.
Yeah. Or reduction in costs and collapsing vendors. Anything around that? Or even just killing your previous carriers?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the process. We're still riding out with AT&T. It's our interactions with them is very challenging on a daily basis. But knowing that we can quickly deploy the Meraki equipment, that in itself, just from a scalability situation, because now that we have everything stabilized, I mean, we're not trying to stay at 60 locations. We have plans to expand. Now we've done this cookie cutter, and we did it. We had this cookie cutter as we were implementing. So now, as we scale, whether it's from acquisition or if we say, okay, we're going to take on another area in Florida and replicate 10, 15 locations, we can do that very quickly. We can build the config. I mean, it's amazing how we can build the configs within the portal, and then as soon as you plug the equipment in the first time, it pulls its config and it's up. Whereas back in the day, when we talked about like old technology, old MPLS, you're going out to a Cisco router, you're plugging into it with a console cable, you're trying to get it configured, or you're on the phone with the AT&T tech trying to get BGP working, or
That was so much fun.
yeah, that stuff's gone away. We used to spend you'd spend half a day or a day trying to get a location up just in the network config. Now you plug the equipment in because you've already pre-configured it, it gets shipped, it's there, and all of a sudden now everything's up. It's huge.
So I do think like SD-WAN for us, we see SD-WAN as a business opportunity from our perspective as a vendor. We see the SD-WAN market very similar right now to let's call it the voice market with SIP. So we spent a long time at R2 converting old customers off old PRIs,